Homeless man helped a lost girl. She turned out to be a global pop star who will change his life. Elias felt the rain before he saw it, a damp chill that settled deep in his bones, a familiar ache that heralded another miserable night. The grand archways of the city's central station offered shelter, but not warmth. He huddled in his usual alcove, a forgotten corner between a decommissioned ticket machine and a wall of grime-streaked advertisements. This was his world. A world of hurried footsteps, garbled announcements, and the perpetual scent of wet concrete and discarded fast food. He clutched the thin fabric of his jacket, his most valuable possession, a faded gray hoodie folded neatly in the bottom of his worn backpack. It was his one truly dry, truly warm thing, reserved for the nights when the cold became a physical threat, a predator stalking the edges of his consciousness. Elias had once been a man of purpose. Sergeant Elias Thorne. He had known command, responsibility, the weight of keeping others safe. Now, his purpose had shrunk to the size of this stone alcove. Survive the night. Find enough change for a coffee in the morning. Try not to remember the man he used to be. He listened to the music of the station, the rhythm of a city that never saw him. Sometimes a song would drift from a passing car or a teenager's headphones. He recognized one voice in particular, a female singer whose melodies were clean and bright, a sound from a different universe. Her music was the auditory equivalent of a warm, well-lit room, a place with food in the kitchen and clean sheets on the bed. It was the sound of everything he had lost. He didn't know her name, but he knew her voice. It was a small, secret comfort, a reminder that beauty still existed somewhere out there, even if it was not for him. The storm broke with a theatrical clap of thunder. Rain fell not in drops but in solid sheets, turning the station entrance into a chaotic swirl of panicked travelers and collapsing umbrellas. Elias watched, detached, a spectator to a minor apocalypse. Then he saw her. She was standing just inside the entrance, soaked to the skin, her thin, fashionable coat offering no protection. Her eyes, wide and frantic, darted through the crowd. She was breathing too quickly, a clear sign of rising panic. She was alone. And she was lost. He saw it in the way she clutched her empty hands, the way she spun in a slow circle, searching for a familiar face that was not there. She was young, maybe 25 or 26, and so completely out of place she might as well have been wearing a spacesuit. People bumped past her, annoyed, oblivious. To them, she was just another obstacle. To Elias, she was a person in distress. An old instinct buried under years of hardship stirred within him. Protect. He pushed himself up, his stiff joints protesting. He walked toward her, a slow, non-threatening shuffle. Her eyes landed on him, and he saw a flicker of fear. He was part of the scenery she had been trained to ignore, to avoid. He stopped a respectful distance away. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. She flinched, pulling her wet coat tighter. I lost my phone. I was just supposed to be a block away. My friends." She trailed off, her voice trembling. He could see she was shivering violently now, the cold setting in. Without a second thought, he shrugged off his backpack, unzipped it, and pulled out the gray hoodie. His treasure. His emergency warmth. He held it out to her. "Here," he said simply. "It's dry. You'll get sick like that." She stared at the hoodie, then at his face, her panic momentarily replaced by confusion. I can't," she stammered. "It's just a hoodie," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "Put it on." Hesitantly, she took it. The fabric was thick and soft. She pulled it over her head, and the shivering began to subside almost immediately. It smelled faintly of rain and something clean, a memory of soap. "Where do you need to go?" he asked. "The Grand Victoria Hotel," she said, the name sounding absurd in the grimy station. He nodded. "The taxi stand is around the side, but it will be a mob scene. Come with me. I know a better spot." He didn't wait for an answer, just turned and started walking, trusting she would follow. She did. He led her through a less traveled service corridor, a shortcut he used to avoid the transit police. He walked slightly ahead of her, a silent guardian clearing a path. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask for money. He just walked. They emerged onto a side street where a lone taxi was just dropping someone off. Elias raised a hand, and the driver nodded. He opened the back door for her. "Grand Victoria," he told the driver, then looked at her. "You'll be safe now." She looked at him, her eyes filled with a dawning realization. She was reaching into her pocket, but she had nothing. No purse, no wallet. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "What's your name?" "Elias," he said. "Get going. Stay warm." He shut the door, gave the roof a gentle tap, and watched the taxi pull away, its red taillights disappearing into the silver curtain of rain. He stood there for a long moment, the cold rain soaking through his thin jacket, and then he turned and walked back to his alcove, colder than before, but feeling something he had not felt in years. A flicker of purpose. The next morning, the city was washed clean. Sunlight streamed through the station's high windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Elias was nursing a lukewarm coffee he'd bought with scavenged change, trying to work the chill out of his limbs. He had slept badly, the dampness seeping into everything. His gaze fell on a television mounted in the window of a closed electronics store. A news report was on. The screen was filled with the face of the girl from the storm. It was a professional photograph, her makeup perfect, her smile radiant. Beneath her face, a headline scrolled in bold letters. "Global pop star Keira Vale found safe after vanishing for hours." Elias froze, the coffee cup trembling in his hand. Keira Vale. That was her name. The voice from the radio. The sound of a warm, safe world. He had given his only dry hoodie to a global superstar. A wave of nausea and embarrassment washed over him. He felt like an idiot. A fool. She was probably laughing about it with her celebrity friends, the story of the grimy homeless man who gave her his sweatshirt. He turned away from the screen, his face burning. He just wanted to disappear back into his alcove, to become invisible again. The small flicker of purpose from the night before was extinguished, replaced by a familiar, bitter shame. Miles away, in a penthouse suite that cost more per night than Elias had seen in a decade, Keira Vale was not laughing. She was pacing, still wearing his gray hoodie over a pair of silk pajamas. It was ridiculously large on her, but it felt like armor. Her head of security, a man named Marcus with a square jaw and colder eyes, was lecturing her. "This was an unacceptable risk, Keira," Marcus said, his voice a low, condescending rumble. "Wandering off alone, no phone, no security. Do you have any idea what could have happened?" "I was gone for an hour, Marcus, not a year," she snapped, her patience worn thin. "I just needed some air. I'm tired of living in a bubble." "That bubble keeps you safe," he retorted. "And what about this person you were with? A vagrant. For all we know, he could have. He helped me." Keira cut him off, her voice sharp. "He was kind. He gave me this," she said, clutching the hoodie. "He asked for nothing in return. He made sure I got into a taxi safely. He was more professional than half your team." Marcus scoffed. "He was a lucky amateur." "Find him," Keira commanded. Marcus stared at her. "What?" "You heard me. Find him. His name is Elias. He's at the central station. I want to thank him properly." "Keira, that is a terrible idea," Marcus argued. "We'll send a courier with some cash. It's cleaner that way." Keira stopped pacing and fixed him with a stare so intense it made him take a step back. "I am not sending a courier. I am going myself. Last night, I felt like a commodity, a lost package to be retrieved. For 10 minutes that man made me feel like a person. Find him, Marcus. That is an order, not a suggestion." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "As you wish." He left the room, his anger a palpable force in the air. Keira sank onto the plush sofa, pulling the sleeves of the oversized hoodie over her hands. She remembered Elias's calm eyes, the quiet authority in his voice. He had not been afraid of the storm, or the chaos, or her. For the first time in a very long time, she had felt genuinely protected. Elias was trying to make himself as small as possible when the black luxury car pulled up to the curb. He recognized it instantly as the kind of vehicle that never, ever stopped in this part of the city. A man in a sharp suit got out of the passenger side, the man with the square jaw from the television. Marcus. His eyes scanned the area with dismissive contempt, landing on Elias. Elias's stomach sank. He was here to tell him off, to warn him away from his famous client. But then the back door opened. Kiera Vale stepped out. She was wearing designer jeans and a stylish jacket, but she looked just as uncertain as she had in the rain. She saw him, and a small, relieved smile touched her lips. She walked toward him, ignoring the stares of the few people milling about. Marcus followed, looking deeply uncomfortable. "Elias," she said, her voice soft. He could only nod, his own voice lost somewhere in his throat. "I wanted to thank you," she said, holding out a neatly folded bundle. It was his hoodie, laundered and looking almost new. "And to return this." He took it numbly. "It was nothing," he managed to say. "It was everything." She corrected him gently. "My security team is paid a fortune to keep me safe. Last night you did their job better than they ever have." She shot a pointed look at Marcus, who looked away, his face a mask of fury. "Listen," Kiera continued, turning her full attention back to Elias. "I have an offer for you. It might sound crazy." She took a deep breath. "I want you to come work for me. On my security team." Elias stared at her, certain he was mishearing, or perhaps dreaming. "Miss, I'm not." "You are exactly what I need," she insisted. "I need someone I can trust. Someone who sees a person, not a paycheck. I felt safe with you, Elias. Truly safe." She held out a card. "This is for an apartment. It's paid for a year. There's a set of clothes waiting for you. A car will take you there. Think about it. Please." He looked from her earnest face to the furious one of her security chief, then down at the pristine hoodie in his hands. This was not real. This could not be real. But the hope in her eyes was undeniable. For the second time in less than 24 hours, Elias Thorne felt the ghost of his old self stir. He took the card. The new world was blinding. Elias found himself in a sleek, sterile apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He was given a uniform, a crisp black suit that felt alien on his skin. He was an anomaly, a glitch in the polished, high-stakes world of Kiera Vale. The other members of Marcus's team treated him with a mixture of pity and contempt. He was the pop star's pet project, the stray she had picked up. He ignored them, focusing on the job. And he began to see things. His old training, his years of observing from the shadows, had honed his senses. He noticed the way a service elevator door was consistently left unlocked. He noticed a catering worker who seemed to linger too long backstage, his eyes always on Kiera. He noticed a fan, a young man who showed up at every hotel, every venue, his behavior growing increasingly obsessive. Elias saw patterns where the others saw only background noise. Their security was reactive, a checklist of procedures. It was complacent. It was inauthentic. He took his concerns to Marcus. "There's a pattern with this fan," Elias said, pointing out the man in a security photo. "His persistence is a red flag. And the service routes aren't secure." Marcus barely looked up from his tablet. "We have protocols for overeager fans," he said dismissively. "And my team secures the routes. Just stand where you're told, Thorne. That's what you're paid for now. Let the professionals handle the thinking." The condescension was a physical blow. Elias was dismissed, his instincts invalidated. He was the charity case, the man who was supposed to be grateful and silent. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A knot of dread tightened in his stomach. He was on his own. The night of the arena show was electric. 20,000 fans screamed Kira's name. Backstage was a controlled chaos of technicians, dancers, and crew. Elias felt that same knot of dread, now a cold, heavy weight. He had seen the obsessive fan again, this time with a media pass that looked just a little too clean, a little too perfect. Marcus, predictably, had assigned Elias to guard a fire exit at the far end of the arena, a meaningless post designed to keep him out of the way. "Stay put," Marcus had ordered. "Don't move from this spot." 5 minutes before Kira was due on stage, Elias made a choice. He abandoned his post. He defied the direct order from his superior. He trusted his gut, the same instinct that had told him to help a scared girl in the rain. He moved quickly through the labyrinthine backstage corridors, heading for the short, private hallway that led directly to the stage entrance. It was supposed to be the most secure part of the entire building. When he rounded the corner, he saw him. The fan. He was not trying to get an autograph. He was jamming something into the electronic lock of Kira's dressing room, the one she would enter immediately after her performance. A moment later, an alarm would have blared, a diversion. An opportunity. Elias didn't shout. He didn't run. He moved with the quiet, deadly efficiency of his former life. "Step away from the door," Elias said, his voice low and calm, yet carrying an absolute authority that cut through the noise. The fan spun around, his face a mask of shock and rage. He lunged. Elias didn't throw a punch. He simply sidestepped, used the man's momentum against him, and pinned him against the wall with swift, practiced ease. He had the man neutralized just as Kira, flanked by Marcus, turned the corner on her way to the stage. She stopped dead, her eyes widening at the scene. Marcus rushed forward, blustering. "What is going on here? Thorne, I told you to stay at your post." "He was compromising the lock on Miss Vale's dressing room," Elias said calmly, never taking his eyes off the intruder. "Check his credentials. I believe they're fake." Another guard frisked the man and found a small, sharp weapon hidden in his boot. The entire corridor went silent. Kira looked from the subdued intruder to the discarded tool by the door, then to Marcus's stunned, pale face. Finally, her eyes met Elias's. In that single, silent gaze everything was said. Validation. Gratitude. And a profound, unshakable trust. He had been right. He had saved her. The aftermath was swift. Marcus was fired. His lazy, arrogant system had been exposed as a hollow shell. The investigation revealed the intruder was a known stalker that Marcus's team had repeatedly dismissed as harmless. The next day, Kira called Elias to her hotel suite. "I'm making you head of my security," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Elias stood taller than he had in years. "I accept," he said. "On one condition." She raised an eyebrow. "I build my own team," he explained. "A small one. People who know how to watch, how to listen. Not just a wall of muscle. A team built on integrity." Kira smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." He wasn't just joining her world. He was helping her rebuild a part of it, making it safer, making it more authentic. Months later, Elias stood in the wings of a stage in Paris, watching Kira perform for a sold-out stadium. He wore a simple black suit, an earpiece his only visible equipment. He was no longer the invisible man in the train station. He was a guardian. He had a home, a purpose, a name. As the final song ended, Kira turned from the roaring crowd and looked directly at him. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod. A nod of thanks. A nod of trust. Elias nodded back, a quiet smile touching his lips. The storm had passed long ago, but it had washed his old life away and delivered him here, to a place of quiet dignity and profound purpose. He was Sergeant Elias Thorne again, and he was finally home.